Hey everybody, this is Brian Aiello. This is Mirage number 7. Today's topic is going to be Terry Pratchett.
And joining me today is Chris Herron.
He is the host of the amazing popular YouTube series Tall Tale TV. Basically, he's going to be challenging me on Terry Pratchett. I have not been a big fan, if he is. Basically, sir, why is that?
Terry Pratchett has always kind of spoken to me. His style of humor goes back to when I was a kid. I actually grew up on British comedy. I was,
okay. So you think he's like Monty Python and the Quest for the Holy Grail type stuff?
Kind of. I think he's a bit more refined than that. He's not as, he's not quite as crass as some of their stuff, or not crass, but he's not quite as base as some of their stuff. He's got a lot more in-depth ideas and stuff like that. He's got a lot of scientific stuff that goes into it. And I, as a bit of a nerd, it really strikes me as just so cool that he can do what he does. But I can understand how you might not, go for it. But definitely,
I've tried to read The Color of Magic a few times, and this time I did get a little bit farther, and I am slightly into it. I just don't know what it is about the language. I just cannot fall into it as much as I want to. What book did you pick up first? Like, what really captured you about his work? I mean, obviously, he was writing from the 70s. The Color of Magic was printed in 1983. He has printed, I think, 65 million books. He's the United Kingdom's most prolific author. He died young, 66, from complications of Alzheimer's, which is incredibly sad. I mean, What was the first book that you picked up? I think you're about my age, maybe a few years younger, but I mean, what was the first book that captivated you and brought you into the fandom?
Yeah, I'm 33, so I think we're about the same age.
You're 7 years younger.
Or no, I'm 34 actually. 30. Oh. I just turned 34. Geez. Okay, but it wasn't actually his book that got me. I saw Color of Magic, the movie.
There's a movie?
They actually made several movies. They made The Color of Magic. They made Hogfather, and they were working on one called Trollbridge. I honestly don't know if they ever finished or not. I don't know if they got the funding.
I wonder if I've seen these.
Yeah, The Color of Magic, Two Flowers, was played by the same guy. I can never remember his name. He's the one that played Samwise Gamgee in Tolkien. Did I lose you?
No, I'm here. I'm thinking. Oh, yeah. What do you mean? The live action movie?
Yeah, the live action movie. Yeah, this is a live action thing. This wasn't a cartoon or anything. The guy who plays Samwise in Lord of the Rings, or not Lord of the Rings. That's the actor that played Two Flowers.
It was a TV miniseries in Britain in 2008. Are you talking about?
It wasn't a miniseries. No, this was a movie.
Oh, this must be American because they're actually spelling color the right way.
That's probably it.
2008, I gave up TV, and probably why I did not hear of this. Christopher Lee was in it. Tim Curry, which he's a horribly sad story right now. I guess he's suffering from some horrible, debilitating physical issues that are making him unable to act anymore. Sean Astin was in it. An interesting story.
Yeah, it was a great movie. Yep, check it out. But yeah, his first book, I did read the first book first. I read The Color of Magic, and it was because I saw the movie. And I have to agree with you. The Color of Magic was not the best book. There were some aspects of it that I really liked. But that's actually why I told you when we decided to do Terry Pratchett, is that you didn't need to start with The Color of Magic, because he definitely gets a lot better. He's got, what was it, 38 books in the series or something like that.
41, yeah, some ridiculous
41? Number. Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't read even close to all of them. maybe half. But
that's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, for such a short career, 66 years old, 41 books in a series, and that's not all he's written. I mean, he wrote 2 a year.
Yeah,
2 a year.
Crazy driven. And and his Alzheimer's wasn't normal Alzheimer's. It was a rare form of it. He wasn't losing memory at all. He had perfectly clear memory. He was losing objects. And I guess, if I remember correctly, it started with one of the letters on his not typewriter. He was actually into computers before any other author, really. It was one of the letters on his keyboard. I think it was the S, and he went out to his assistant, started yelling at his assistant, "What did you do with it?" You know, it's like, what did you do with the letter S? You know, he couldn't find it on his keyboard. And that's when they figured something was going on with his brain, and they took him in and found out that he was just starting to lose objects. And in the end, he was actually using a lot of voice-to-text technology to get his stuff written because he couldn't type anymore. You know, it was insanely sad.
That's really incredible. And his last quote actually went up on Twitter via his assistant too. And I wrote it down. I mean, actually, I didn't write it down. I wrote down the words Twitter last words.
It was something like death, you know, comes in and takes him by the hand, and they walk out onto the endless black desert, you know, and I can't remember exactly how it goes either. I'd have to look it up. It goes,
"At last, Sir Terry, we must walk together." Terry took Death's arm and followed him through the doors and on to the black desert under the endless night. The end.
Yeah.
And that's just interesting that he probably quoted that to his assistant, and his assistant typed it into Twitter, and that was it. 66 years old, 40 some odd novels. And, you know, I really do want to read these novels because people talk about them all the time.
Yeah. Just don't start with the first one.
I have to get past it. I really want to get into this world because, I mean, you read the first one, you push past it, and then what you found, what I found, is very difficult to wade through. What made you so interested in continuing on? Well,
I didn't find it difficult per se. I definitely enjoyed it when I read it. It was like, okay, this is kind of cool. You know, I dig his style, but it definitely wasn't nearly as refined as he became. You know, and so after that, I actually didn't read any more of his books, and then I saw The Hogfather. My wife found it; it was on Netflix, actually, of all things. And so we watched that, and I was like, I fell in love with the character Death again. You know, because
Death that's one of his famous ones. And God, looking at how he wrote Death too is very interesting because I guess he wrote Death and like the capital letter was the first. He would capitalize the first letter of each word in the sentence. He wouldn't put quotations around the sentence itself. It would be capital A, T, capital. It would be capitalized the entire sentence, right? No.
It's been so long. I know that it was something weird. I haven't actually been able to physically read one of his books in a while. I've been doing all the audiobooks. But I remember
that's
it was
the hard time for me too. That's probably one of the reasons I wasn't able to do this. I have a list of books I want to read so badly right now, and none of them have compelled me to pull away from any of the stuff that I'm actually trying to finish. Unfortunately, Terry Pratchett was not able to pull me from any of my chores. I wish he had, honestly. But
while I did physically read a lot of his books, when I went back and found the audiobooks, like, you know, we talked about in the last time we were together, the actors he got to do those, oh man, they make them even better than reading them. You got to check out the audiobooks.
Did he act any of his Did he act in any of his audiobooks?
I don't think so.
No.
He actually had a bit. It wasn't really a speech impediment. He had something going on with his voice that was due to like a bicycle accident when he was a kid or something like that.
Interesting.
So he wasn't like Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman does a lot of his own works, and so does like Stephen King. I said Gaiman. It's actually Gaiman. Oh, yeah, Neil Gaiman. I always get that wrong.
It's very interesting. If you're looking at his Wikipedia page, and you don't see this very often, and for some reason, my computer on, you know, just standard non, you know, what's it called? I wake up so early that this is actually non-incognito mode. It won't play standard audio files. I have to go incognito mode to play them. There's an audio file of his voice, and it won't play it for me. Maybe you can play it for us if you can find it. And usually you don't see that on audio file on Wikipedia. So I was curious what he sounds like.
You can look up. He's on a lot of YouTube stuff as well. If you can't get that to work.
He's an interesting looking guy too for 66 years old. He doesn't look 66. He looks a little bit more wizened than that, and he has these crazy eyebrows too that kind of stick up a little bit. And he likes black, and he wears leather coats. And
yes, when he did his memoir, it was something about part of it was about, and a love for large fedoras or something like that.
And my wife won't let me wear a fedora. She refuses. She says, no, I cannot wear a fedora. She'll divorce me, like, immediately, she says.
Smart woman.
I'm having a hat problem right now. I need to find a hat that doesn't make me, like, stick out. I wear a New York Giants hat. I wear a New York Giants hat, and people want to stop and talk to me about the Giants, and I don't pay attention to anything but writing related stuff. And like, what about blah blah blah? And I'm like, I agree with what he did, and they walk away happy. I'm lucking out right now significantly.
Just go to like Cafe Press or something and find like a Patrick Rothfuss hat or something.
Hey, it's not a bad idea. I like him. No, actually, I'm mad at him right now. Where the hell is that third book at?
I know.
That's a good hat. I'll just have, where the hell is that third book? I'll get like updates on Twitter, in my email, and it'll be one of his tweets. I'm like, oh, is this the tweet I'm looking forward to? Where's that third book?
Right. I stopped following him. I was getting sad.
Really? It's so
because he never updates his Twitter.
He never. Well, he updates. Oh, well, I see his name a bunch of times, but I guess he doesn't say anything.
Oh, does he not?
I don't have no clue. Back to the subject at hand. Maybe. Terry Pratchett. Yes. He's never going to update again, unfortunately, and he's not going to have any more books. Yeah, I guess posthumously he published his last book, though.
He did, but it's not the last of the Discworld series. It's going to his daughter.
She is going to write them. Interesting.
Yeah, and what was her name?
Her name is Rihanna Pratchett.
Yeah, Rihanna Pratchett.
It's a beautiful name.
And apparently, she's been a writer for a while, and yeah, she's taking it on as I think she said as a curator.
Interesting.
Or something like that.
I read one thing interesting recently about Terry Pratchett's posthumous works. Is that he had them rolled over by a steam, oh God, did I just roll, what's it called? Cement roller thingy. What are they called, man?
Oh,
steamroller.
Steamroller?
Yeah, he had them pressed into cement or something along those lines. So really? I don't know how she's going to work on them. And I did a little research on her because I'm curious about the next generation of writers, and she's a video game writer.
Oh, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. That's hard. Cool. It's hard, these next generation people who kind of have to live in the shadows of famous authors like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you read anything from her? She did the Tomb Raider comic, and she did something with DC, but she's not really prolific in the way that her father was.
I had no idea. I haven't read anything from her. But I know that Terry Pratchett, not only was he a gamer, he actually had a couple video games made of the Discworld series, but I never got to play them. They were by the time I knew about them, it was kind of hard to get a hold of them for less than a small fortune.
I wonder what kind of father he was. I was just wondering that. I mean, obviously, you're not going to be able to pick, and there's not a lot out there about his personal life.
She described him as part father, part big brother.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So there's a couple documentaries out there if you ever care to watch them. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
What else did you glean from the documentaries? How long ago were they produced?
There's been a couple shorter ones that were throughout his career that I saw. The one that I remember the best was shortly after his death. And it was actually they had an actor playing him, kind of guiding you through his life and just kind of giving you, this behind the scenes and everything like that in his own quote unquote his own voice, But it was pretty interesting. They talked about when he was young, and the dean basically took him aside and said he was never going to amount to anything, and he was horrible at writing, and apparently this guy was kind of an army hard ass. And so he took that to heart and basically decided to prove him wrong and publish his first book when he was 17, which was like The Carpet People or something like that.
The Carpet People. And did we have an opportunity to read that, or did that just kind of go away?
I have no idea. I actually hadn't even looked for it. I should have. I should have prepared for this a little bit better, huh?
Well, I mean, I've never even read a Pratchett novel all the way through, so you're better than I am. My last Mirage, we did, what's it called? Edgar Rice Burroughs. And the one, I don't even remember reading an Edgar Rice Burroughs novel that wasn't a comic book or a television series or, a Tarzan movie. So I'm batting 1,000 as far as not reading any of this work.
I hear you, man. I hear you.
It's so tough. I mean, as far as the speculative genre, there are so many authors out there, and just getting a basis for who these people are. I mean, they have such a gigantic following. I mean, you can't read every novel, but you want to get a glimpse of who these people, who the greats are. And Terry Pratchett is one of the greats. Whether you read his work or not, he put his fingerprints all over the genre.
Yep. And he was number one in Europe until J.K. Rowling came along, and now he's number 2. He's still number 2.
Yeah, I mean, how many books? She's over. How much? What is her number in terms of total published?
I'm not even going to guess.
Find that out real quick.
I know she has to give away like hundreds of million each year so that she doesn't become a billionaire.
Right, she doesn't want to do that.
Nope, not in England.
Total published for her. She's 400 million. She shattered him. And that's just Harry Potter. And that doesn't even include her fake novels.
Yep. Which I've read all the Harry Potter novels. I love the Harry Potter novels. I was one of those geeks where my entire family went to the midnight releases of the books, and we would read them in a single day. I never got to do a costume, but that was was something I definitely would have done. But I like Terry Pratchett a lot more. I will always love Harry Potter, but Terry Pratchett is just something about it. It's his scientific nature, where he just takes honest to God scientific, data and twists it around in just this kind of almost slapstick way to where you just got to shake your head, but it makes total sense at the same time. It's like, why would you have a round planet where things could fall off instead of a flat one?
No, that's awesome. Does he have anything to do with the flat Earth theory?
No, it's actually to make fun of the flat Earth theory. It was done to make fun of them. But
does can you call him fantasy only, or could you add a science fiction element to him, like a fantasy science fiction writer, or does he call himself only fantasy?
I don't really know. For my purposes, I'd say he is primarily fantasy, but he mixes in enough science. I mean, he's talking about quantum theory and, string theory and all this crazy stuff in there, but he does it in almost like footnotes. It's so much fun when he starts talking about the time stream and how time is this alternate, or, the fourth dimension and everything like that. And he goes into all that scientific data, but then it's to basically explain how this procrastinator works, and it's just, he uses it for the dumbest stuff in the best ways. So I'd say you could definitely say that there's some sci-fi there, but it's sci-fi in a fantasy setting. So
that's interesting. I was just looking at Wikipedia. I have his page open, and it says that he wrote in fantasy, science fiction, horror as well. But I guess if you add humor to it, it kind of covers up a lot of that those elements. I mean, it kind of makes it just a good story, which, you stop thinking about definitions of what kind of story is this, and you just start reading it for great character.
Absolutely.
Do you think he had great character? Is the characters or something that you follow it for?
The characters are the best part.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the characters are amazing. He's got some of my favorite characters of all time. I mean, Death himself. You go through the Death series, and he basically starts to have almost a self-identity crisis, and he tries to kind of become more human and stuff like that. And Death is just one of the coolest characters ever made, in my opinion. Vimes, the guy from the Night Watch. I mean, he's to him like you could anybody off the street. He's just such a cool character. He's got, his characters are some of his best stuff. I just, if I could do what he does with characters, I would be so happy, but I don't even come close.
He's daunting though as an author. 41 novels in this series.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's like starting it, you're like, I mean, how big are these novels? 41, how thick are they? 300 pages a piece, or are they even bigger than that? Let's take a look at one of these things.
Yeah, I know that they're full-length novels. I think they may have started out a bit shorter. I can't really remember. I mean, part of the problem is I read a lot of them on ebook.
Yeah, exactly.
So
That's what I do now too. So you're new into this, obviously.
relatively. I mean, like I said, the first couple of books that I read, The Color of Magic, I read the hard copy, and I believe I read Thud on a hard copy. But I mean, I've had an ebook reader since they were first out.
Yeah, he's an internet dude too. Kind of grew up with it.
Terry Pratchett?
It's interesting. Yeah, he started with the internet. Started
Yeah, he was
growing
a
with
bit of a tech geek.
PCs and yeah, tech geek. Orangutans.
You know what? When I said science fiction, I guess that wouldn't actually be accurate. It's more science than science fiction. He doesn't actually dabble too much into like aliens and stuff like that. It's more actual science. So I guess, yeah, fantasy.
Well, I mean, you can call if you're writing fiction, you can have science in it and still call it science fiction, just hard science fiction.
Right.
Yeah, you write hard. I mean, it's like hard fact science. And if you're writing a fiction setting, then you have to add that fiction thing to it.
I actually I read, well, I say read, but I listened to one of the Science of Discworld books. I ended up starting with number 3, I think, because that was the only one that my library had. And it's the Science of Discworld is a really interesting series because he wrote it in combination with 2 college professors.
Mm-hmm.
And every other chapter is basically these college professors going off talking about actual science and, you know, how it pertains to both our world and to the world of Discworld, because in the stories, the chapters where there's the actual narrative going on, the wizards at the Unseen University accidentally created Earth. And so they're kind of the caretakers and stuff like that. But it's almost like a college textbook, but it's done in a way that I actually enjoyed it more than a lot of fiction. So
I mean, it's very interesting because he's writing within, you know, he's talking about J.K. Rowling and you're talking about the humor of the 1980s and in the United Kingdom with the Monty Python guys. And what was that? Mr. Bean. There was a series out for a little while.
Geez.
You know what I'm talking
Mr.
about,
Bean.
though.
Yep.
The guy who was in the Doctor series here in America. God, in my brain.
You're talking about Monk. I can't remember his actual name, but yeah, I know what you're talking about, Mr. Bean.
Not Monk, though. It was the other one with the guy that had the limp and the opioid problem.
That same guy was in a lot of stuff. He was also in Blackadder.
That's what I'm talking about. Blackadder. That's a show. Blackadder, that humorous show. I mean, the kind of humor that was in that as well. He's writing within that type of environment. We're talking about Hiker's Guide to the Galaxy. He's really close
to like Douglas Adams, you know, with Hitchhiker's Guide. But he does it better. You know, really, I like Douglas Adams, but Terry Pratchett just, you know, showed Douglas Adams how it's done when he went and did his stuff.
I feel like I'm on the poor man's version of Terry Pratchett without actually delving into Terry Pratchett.
Yeah, he wrote his books so that you could jump in at any point.
Oh, really? So it's not really series. He's actually writing all of this stuff. So that if you've read all the
books prior, you'll get more jokes. That's about the only thing that you got to worry about. You know, so if you have read books leading up to the one that you're reading, there's going to be certain things that you will catch that you would not have otherwise. But you can start on literally any book and you will enjoy the, you know, the crud out of it just because that's how he went out to write them. So
that's so interesting. So I mean, his entire life is in these books too. Ingmar Bergman films and the Gulf War, Egyptian history, there's mythology. It's really interesting stuff. Definitely I want to read his stuff, and just unfortunately that their time is not there to do it.
You said that you're really into the what did you call them? Death fantasies?
Yeah.
Or something like that. If you read his Death series, I think you'd really get a kick out of that.
Now, is the Death series and is it extra to the Discworld series, or is that included within it?
Okay, so when I say series, Terry Pratchett's kind of this case unto himself. He broke all the rules. You know, everybody said don't do head hopping, don't do this, don't do that. He just did whatever he wanted. You know, because to him, I think he said that writing was the most fun you could have with your clothes on. So he never listened to rules. He just went and did what he wanted. So what he did is he would just occasionally write books in kind of a a subset. And he wouldn't do them back to back. It would just be like, now he's going to do one from the Death series. This one's from the Night Watch series. This one's from the Witches series, whatever. You can find online reading lists of how to, reading order lists or whatever you want to call it, to where if you want to read about the Death novels, this is the order that you read them in, and so it's like 3, 6, 12, 15, whatever the numbers of the books are. But those are the ones, if you follow those, you'll get Death as the main character.
And you sent me this, didn't you? You sent me that reading list. I'm going to include that in the notes. Hopefully I find that email.
Yeah. So it's a really interesting way to do it. It's definitely not how I would have done it, but for somebody who just
not how you did it either, right? You just read them as you found them.
Oh, no. After like the second or third book that I read of his, I found that list. And I was so glad I did, because then I went and I read all the Death novels first, and then all the magic ones, or Unseen University. And then I read all the Night Watch ones. And after that, I started rereading the Night Watch ones. Then I read the Night Watch ones a third time, because that's my favorite. But yeah, it's pretty interesting.
And how many movies were made of his work? That's the thing I'm having a hard time finding, honestly, on his Wikipedia page, is references to the movies.
So the stuff that I know about, you actually just informed me of the miniseries from UK or whatever.
Which is 100% American, it seems like.
So the only ones that I can say for certain that have been made are The Color of Magic, which is his first book, and then they also made The Hogfather, which is from the Death series. And then they were working on Troll Bridge, which I have not read that book. I think it was actually a short story, if I remember correctly. Whether or not they finished that or got the funding for it, I think it was on Kickstarter a long time ago.
Good Omens is a Neil Gaiman. Is that an adaptation? Is it going to be a movie 6-part series? And I remember listening to a Nerdist podcast with Gaiman saying that, coincidentally enough, Pratchett had given him a blessing to go ahead with it.
That's awesome.
That's going to be on BBC. I tried to read that.
I haven't read that.
Maybe book. I don't like his work. Unfortunately, I had to put that down.
It could be.
I asked Olivia,
yeah, British
my
humor
wife,
is not for everybody.
I asked my wife whether she liked it, and she had a hard time reading it. I don't. Why do you think that would be? That he seems so popular, and I just am having such a hard time enjoying his writing.
I can't say for sure. I have not read that book. Neil Gaiman, I love his TV adaptations, like Neverwhere or whatever it was. I tried reading the books, and I was not that impressed.
Oh, really?
I know that a lot of people like his writing, but it wasn't my style.
American Gods, loved it. That was fantastic.
And
the adaptation on Stars was sensationally done. I'm like, they're going to finish this whole novel within the first season, and they did not. It's like, wow, that did a fantastic job with it.
So I got to read more Neil Gaiman.
He's
kind of my Terry Pratchett for you.
It's the only thing I've read is The American Gods, and I really enjoyed it. It read like a first novel, unfortunately, but the guy is so talented.
Yeah.
Just based on that one novel. And the only other one that I've tried to read was Good Omens, and it bothered me. It just really bothered me a lot. And I have no clue why, unfortunately.
I actually just found another, I guess you could say, movie adaptation of Terry Pratchett stuff. I found this earlier today, actually, while looking something up. I randomly came across on YouTube a small series of Discworld tour guides or something like that. And it's done in black and white. And it's a nonprofit thing that they did back in like 2008 or something like that. I'm not exactly sure when. But it's not the highest quality, but it is hilarious. And it's like 8 parts or something like that. I'm on number 4 right now, which I think is Food. So anybody who wants to check that out, it's worth a quick look. It's only got a couple thousand hits on YouTube, so I don't think it's very well known.
Can you shoot me a link?
Yeah. Do you mind if I send that afterwards? I'm at the wrong computer to be doing much stuff. This computer is
definitely. And if I could make you a quick list, it would be that, and it would be if you could find that list of preferred reading.
Or the reading order?
Yes, thank you. Preferred reading order of the novels, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
The feature length of The Color of Magic with the English spelling of color was starring Now this says Jason Astin in it too, and Tim Curry and Christopher Lee. So it's the same exact actors.
Yep, the Tim Curry did come back for both.
Oh, okay. So they did it for the TV. They did it for TV, and then they did the movie with the same exact actors.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
I don't understand. So this is a TV film.
Maybe that's what it is. Okay, I don't know.
I don't know either. This is interesting. I'm gonna have to watch it. Did you watch The Color of Magic?
I did.
And did you like it?
I loved it. I thought it was great. Yeah, I thought it was a movie when I watched it, but I mean, if you've ever seen Red versus Blue, that was done as little like 5-minute segments, and they spliced that together into an entire season that plays like a movie. So they could have done something similar. I don't know.
I have seen Red versus Blue. That is the most hilarious. I just sat there one day and watched like hours of them. You're talking about the YouTube thing, right?
Stuff. Yeah, with the Halo characters.
Yeah, I didn't know that they made that into a movie. Interesting. So the number of episodes is 2. It was released on Sky. So they did this again into a feature-length film?
I don't know.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Then,
I could be completely mistaken. It's been years since I saw it.
Yeah, so. 2008. I mean, it feels like 2008 was yesterday. It doesn't feel like it should be 2018, just around the corner. I write 2017 on stuff, and it's like, really? I'm wrong. I'm senile. It's not 2017. I'm not.
Yeah, I wrote down 2014 the other day when I was doing a shipping at work.
I'm so lost the year that sometimes I write September, and it's like, no. And I get the date wrong. Speaking of Alzheimer's, I mean, I don't want to make fun of that horrible, horrible ailment, but it's like, maybe I'm suffering from it. How do you get checked? Check my brain, please.
You actually can get checked. They can find it decades in advance now.
Oh, really?
So,
is it a blood test?
Yep.
Or do they have to x-ray your brain?
I can't remember for certain, but I feel like it was something you can do on a computer. Like you just take this test, and depending on how you score, they can see if you're, look like you have signs of it, and then they could do something more in depth. I could be completely off base with that because I saw that TED Talk years ago. But
looking it up right now, there's tests for Alzheimer's and dementia. I would think they would have something on the internet, but then I guess they have IQ tests all the time, and I take them, and I'm a genius. So I love those tests because I can retake it and I can memorize the test. And hey,
that's the problem with Mensa.
That's the problem. Yeah, everybody's a genius. I have an IQ of 190. How come? I memorize the test and I just retake it until it gives me a perfect score.
Yep. Yeah. Speaking of the Alzheimer's aspect of Terry Pratchett, I guess as soon as he found out, he came forward and basically told the public what was going on because he wanted to really raise awareness for it because there was so little money going towards research, and so many people end up afflicted with it. I think they said it was like 1 in 3 people who make it over a certain age or something like. I could be off with that too. Don't quote me on that. But
no, I don't doubt it. I'm looking it up right now so I can include something in the show notes because it's definitely one of those things that happens at the end of your life. Yeah. And it happens to a large majority of senior citizens, and they get stuck in a home and they suffer, and nobody goes to visit them because grandpa and grandma are hard to deal with, and they basically die alone and in a lot of pain.
Yeah,
they don't even realize it. I mean, they're not themselves anymore. Brian Aiello doesn't know who Brian Aiello is. Brian Aiello is just a husk of whoever the hell he is. It's a sad disease. Yeah. You lose dignity. I mean, it's horrible.
I'd rather go out through pain than through that. It's that to lose yourself is just that's probably one of my biggest and only true fears, But
that's the thing, though, is I don't even know how much you're aware of who you are at that particular point in time.
Yeah,
that's the sad thing. It's definitely a scary disease, and he's still producing art at that time. And what I was reading is that you really don't die of Alzheimer's. You die of pneumonia. You die of like infection. You die of lesions. You die of, basically intreatable and horrible bacteria. It's just the bad things that happen within the brain itself. It's just not a good situation. I'm not finding anything about There's no cure for Alzheimer's disease, but medication, sensory therapy, and more can help its symptoms. And to get the full benefit of treatment, early diagnosis is important. There are tests that diagnose it, and it's a normal part of aging. It is not a normal part of aging, just that I can't read. Blah, 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 blah.
They are making leaps and bounds with it, and Terry Pratchett definitely helped push that forward.
Yeah.
I mean, they're even calling it diabetes type 3 now. They found that there's a huge link between Alzheimer's and diabetes, like that family of autoimmune diseases.
Well, so here's the deal. They can definitely examine your brain under a microscope after you die.
After the
fact? Yeah, so it's scary. You can use tests to rule out other conditions. So I don't know, mental state exam, problem solving skills, attention span, counting skills, memory. They help narrow things down, but there's no way that it's definitively say it. I mean, they can guess. That's the problem. There was a what is it? Adam Ruins Everything. Do you know that show? It was great.
Yeah.
The last episode I watched was Adam Ruins the Healthcare System. And I guess he was, yeah, right. The medical system in this country is horrible. He was ruining mammograms. The woman that he was with wanted to get a mammogram, and they said, well, you really don't need it unless you're over a certain age, and then only if you're actually detecting a lump, and blah blah blah. Don't quote me on that. Actually, do research. But there are like 5 different types of cancers. You have the fast moving kind that kills you really really quickly, and then you have the slow moving kind, and blah 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 blah. And only the fast moving kind is something that you really necessarily need to get taken care of, and all the other ones aren't necessarily something that's going to kill you. And interesting, because medical doctors will misdiagnose you. I mean, they don't know which is which.
Yeah, my mom actually went through breast cancer, and so being the nerd that I am, I went out and did tons of research, most of which I've forgotten at this point. But getting a mammogram actually increases your risk of breast cancer. So there's a lot of fun quirks to our system.
Medical system,
they really just kind of try to overtreat you if they can, because they can make a buck off you when there's other stuff that you can do that is just as effective. An
opportunity to put medicine in your body, and medicines are expensive. That's how they make their money. I mean, pharmaceuticals are outrageous. It's a sad situation. I mean, this guy obviously had a horrible, horrible disease, and looking at my keyboard right now, there are letters actually gone because they're painted on there, and I use more of them than others, and I just can't imagine. You're looking for a key that is there, and you can't find it. I mean, I'm not a hunter and pecker. I type with like 3 fingers, but over the course of the last 20 years, I've memorized what the keys are, not by trying, just because I use them so often. But
he took it in stride, though. He didn't shut down. He didn't decide that he was just going to go retire for the rest of his life. He wanted to get his work done, and it actually kind of it angered him at the same time, and he just kind of went off and did everything that he could in his last days. And it's just such a amazing guy. I hate that he's gone. It's so sad.
Did he know that he was having last days, though?
Yes.
He knew that the time was coming?
Yeah. They basically gave him only a certain number of years. I don't know exactly how many or whatnot, but they told him that, I mean, even if he wasn't going to die, he was going to lose his mind. So the progression of it was a definite thing. It wasn't going to just stop for some reason. So he knew that whether he died or didn't die, he only had so much time. And death was, with Alzheimer's, is, very, very definite in most cases. So yeah, he knew that the end was coming, that I think he wanted to get 7 more books out that he had planned. I don't know if he did get them all. I would have to look that up, but he got quite a few of them out. I know that much.
It's very interesting. So he's not like a guy who sits at a desk and wants to agonize over a sentence, though. He's the type of writer that was going to just punch it, step on the gas, burn rubber until he finishes the novel. Like I sit there and I agonize over work. I agonize to the point where, oh shit, I need to go back to the beginning and I need to add 1,000 words about this scene. Then I need to go and find that section that, you know, enhances that and add another 500 words about that scene. And then my novel takes 12,000 years because I'm adding stuff endlessly.
He would definitely second guess himself, though. He'd always ask for advice or an opinion from other authors. One of his best friends was actually Neil Gaiman. They met when Neil Gaiman was still a journalist. There we go. And Terry Pratchett had just come out with his first book, and they just kind of hit it off. They realized that they were both into kind of the same thing. They had similar personalities, and so all the time Terry would just call up Neil Gaiman and ask him, it's like, what is funnier, this or this? And Neil Gaiman would just kind of look at him, it's like, do both. Why can't you just mix them together? And so that's where a lot of the stuff came from, was him bouncing ideas back and forth with Neil Gaiman.
There's one thing that I remember Gaiman saying after Pratchett had passed. He used to call Pratchett up all the time and ask him help with getting stuck with characters. And, the most irritating thing that Pratchett would tell him is he would ask, what do you want your characters to do? And Gaiman would say something along the lines as well, that's why I called and asked you. And says, well, that's not my problem. And he would hang up. they're your characters, Gaiman, my dear. And he would hang up. And Gaiman would think about it for a second, and he would go, damn it. And he'd figure it out in like a second, because he'd be so irritated with Pratchett. He would lose his concentration with what he was having a problem with, and then it would just dawn on him, oh shit, I figured it out. It was that wonderful idea. I mean, wonderful to have somebody like that to bounce ideas off of. I mean, I'm having a problem. I walk my dog, and usually it just dawns on me, oh yeah, it's easier than I thought it was going to be. I'm stuck on, this twirling mess of pasta, and really it's just 4 or 5 strands. I just got to pull them out softly and I figure my problem out. But he had this guy that, didn't take things too seriously. It was easier than he thought it was.
Yep.
Hogfather looks like a Christmas story. What's that? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Hogfather actually was kind of a twist on the Christmas story, and it's kind of the premise of it is the Assassin's Guild is hired to inhume, I guess is the word that they used, Santa Claus. Basically, go kill Santa Claus. It's not actually Santa Claus; it's Discworld's version of it. And so somebody hires them to kill Santa Claus, who is a fictional individual even in their world. But, they have one guy, Mr. Tiatime, I'm probably saying that wrong, but he actually takes the contract. It's like, yeah, I've thought about this a lot. So it's a really interesting premise. I haven't given away any of the story, don't worry. But yeah, if you get a chance to read that or watch it, it's a good one. It's one of my favorites.
What were you going to say before I interrupted you? I apologize. I was just getting, I got excited that I was looking at a picture of Santa Claus here. And the little boy in me just exclaimed.
I was saying that in the groups of writers that I run with, they tend to bounce their ideas off of me. So I kind of play the role of Neil Gaiman.
If I ever get stuck, I will definitely shoot my ideas over at you.
Go right ahead, anytime.
Who is David Jason? And he's in every single one of these movies. He's a Sir David Jason too. He's in Hogfather. He is in The Color of Money, He's in the Color of Magic. He is in all of them. He plays Albert.
He plays?
Oh, he plays Death.
Oh, no, Albert is Death's butler.
Oh.
It's not really a butler, but he kind of plays that role, And maybe he is the butler. I can't remember. But he basically plays the role of Death's butler. Whether or not he actually is, I can't remember. It's been so long.
This is a rich world. I mean, when you look at what is Discworld exactly? It is on Turtle. I knew it was. It was on a Turtle. I started reading one of these books when I was a kid, and I lost it. If I hadn't lost this book when I was a kid, I would just be just as much of a fan as you are.
Yep, they flow across the back of they flow through space on the back of the great Tatooine. The opening line of Color of Magic is about that, and it's actually probably the best way to set up the what Discworld looks like, you could possibly do. I don't have it in front of me. Let's see if I can find it
on my phone.
This computer's just so slow. I use this ancient computer to do my recording on because I'm too cheap to buy something else. Here we go. Let's see if I can read this real quick. In a distant and secondhand set of dimensions, in an astral plane that was never meant to fly, the curling star mist waver in part. See, great Atuan, the turtle comes, swimming slowly through the interstellar gulf, hydrogen frost on excuse me. Hydrogen frost on his ponderous limbs, his huge ancient shell pocked with meteor craters. Through sea-sized eyes that are crusted with rheum, I don't know what that is, and asteroid dust, he stares fixedly at the destination. In a brain bigger than a city, with geological slowness, he thinks only of the weight. Most of the weight is, of course, accounted for by Beryllia, Tubal, the great Typhon, and Jarakeen, upon whose broad and star-tanned shoulders the disk of the world rests, garlanded by the long waterfall at its vast circumference and downed by the baby blue vault of heaven. So, yeah, it's basically 4 giant elephants on top of the back of a turtle with a flat planet on top of them.
I'm looking at a gorgeous picture of that. It's wonderful. I mean, it's beautiful the way the artist has rendered it, and the words all seem made up.
Yeah, they do. I know that they're not, but he actually ripped that from something. He saw that from, I think it was a holy text, actually.
Oh, really?
And he took the idea from that and just loved it because he was going to make fun of the flat earthers anyways. So that's why he put it on the back of 4 elephants on the back of a turtle flying through space.
And so the flat earthers have been rocking it for the last 37 years, huh?
Right.
Man. So
yeah, don't start with the first book.
No, I have to. I've already started it. I mean, they're basically going to what's his face has already been told that he has to follow what's his face because he has real gold.
Told to follow 2 flowers. Yeah.
You have to go with him because he's got gold. You need to find out what the gold is, and I'm in it. I got to figure this out. There's a crazy little character, and I think somebody has magic, and I don't know. It just seems muddled to me. There just seems to be this film over it that I'm just not able to get through, and I don't know where that film is coming from.
A little more muddled than the rest of them. They get better really quick. If I was to tell somebody to start reading, if you're into any sort of kind of crime or mystery, go for the or even a cop procedural show, go for the Night Watch, thread. If you're into magic and fireballs and stuff like that, go for the Unseen University or the Witches. If you're into kind of the supernatural stuff, go for the Death, the books. And those ones are the ones that are my favorite. And I haven't read all the different threads, but those are definitely the ones that I would recommend.
But this is ultimately a series. From the book that I'm reading right now, The Color of Magic, the first will lead to the second, and the second leads to the third. And Pratchett's intention was to tell a 40 some odd book story, a 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 page opus, basically.
I don't know if I really agree with that. It's more he made a world and decided to tell a ton of short stories. Or not short stories, a ton of stories. Because like you go from
you don't think they're connected at all?
No, they just have a lot of the same characters in them. If you go from book 1 to book 2, the characters are going to completely change. You're not following the same story anymore. They're just in the same city or possibly just the same continent. Sometimes not even that.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you can start anywhere. They're meant to just kind of be all in the same world. And so if you want to follow a certain character or a set of characters, these are the ones that you follow, and that's what that reading order list is about. So, but yeah, you don't have to start with book 1 because it's just a single story in this world.
I guess I'm stuck with the mindset, and we have this problem in the modern world that we live in, is everything is a series. Everything's a continuation. Everything is a cliffhanger waiting to be resolved.
And that's one of the things where he broke the rules.
Yeah, I guess so. Because, I mean, everything is waiting to get resolved. Wait until the next one.
Yep. Yeah, I can't imagine having found him, back when he first started. I mean, of course, that was the year I was born. But, if I was reading books back in '83, I would just hate waiting for the next one to come out. And then it's like, wait a minute, this isn't following the same characters. I want to go back to these guys. That would just drive me nuts. But, it's...
So do the stories end, though, at the end of the novel? Do they come to a satisfactory conclusion?
Absolutely.
You're like, yay! Yeah.
The only one that I felt didn't quite do that was actually A Color of Magic. That one was set up for a sequel. The rest of the ones that I've read have not.
Did the sequel happen?
I can't remember if it's book 2 or not, but yeah, there was a sequel to it. That may have been yes, excuse me. It's a good thing I don't talk for a living. It may have been book 2.
Yeah, it's very interesting about the. Do you ever read A Wheel of Time, The Wheel of Time, A Wheel of Time, whichever one it's called, The Wheel of Time?
I started to a long time ago. That was back in high school when I was reading like 4 books at a time, and I think I just lost the book and never went back to it.
I read the first 3 or 4, and then the author died.
Yeah,
I guess he hadn't finished like the last one.
Was it Brandon Sanderson that took it over?
It was actually. I think it was Brandon Sanderson that took over the last book, and I never.
That guy's a workhorse.
Yeah, that guy works a lot.
Have you seen the amount of books he comes out with? He just cranks those things out. But
who does he publish?
Is it distracted again?
Is it? No, that's fine. Does Brandon? He publishes under Tor, doesn't he? Brandon Sanderson.
I have no idea.
That's why I love this podcast, because it really doesn't matter. You talk about whatever comes on your mind. I mean, Pratchett can lead down any road you want to talk about. That is not what I thought he would look like. Brandon Sanderson.
Oh, I've never actually seen a picture of him.
It's too bad I don't have a way to show. I guess I can email you a picture of him, but I mean, he's a fine-looking guy, and I'm sure if he listens to this podcast, there's no way to insult him. He looks like a very,
I think,
mousy guy.
I think my 2 favorite authors for how they look would have to be Neil Gaiman, because he looks like a rock star, and actually he's married to one.
Is he? Who's he married to?
I can't remember. I just know that he's married to a rock star.
As much as we talked about Neil Gaiman, we're gonna have to talk about him next. If you ever do a Mirage with me again, then you have to. Aha! See, I'm one up on you then. This will be the author that I've actually read a book about.
I've actually been meaning to find a reason to go read his stuff, so I'll go ahead and do that. I'll start, queuing his stuff up.
I want to do. He's done Norse mythology. I've downloaded that one. I want to read it so bad, so maybe it'll give me an excuse to actually read it.
Yeah, the other author whose appearance I absolutely dig is Patrick Rothfuss, because of his beard. That thing is so epic.
I love that guy's work. And his second book bothered the crap out of me. It was so meandering. I wanted. Did you read it? You read it, right?
Yeah. I've read his books many times. The first one way more than the second one. That's one of my problems. Is the reason I don't get too many books is I reread them over and over and over. But yeah, I have to agree. I absolutely love his writing. He is my favorite author. Possibly on par with Terry Pratchett, depending on how you want to look at it. Terry Pratchett's just done more work. But yeah, Patrick Rothfuss, he's really good at scene structure and storytelling.
Character.
He really sucks at ending stuff. And if he hears this, I really hope he doesn't hold it against me, but
if he hears this, if people like Patrick Rothfuss and Brandon Sanderson are listening to my podcast, I'll be like, I don't know how I'd feel about that, but hey guys, thanks for listening. I love your work. And I'll read a Brandon Sanderson novel eventually, I promise. But no, that guy, when he wrote about going into the what he was having the relations with the fairy or whatever she was.
Yep, that was the part I couldn't stand either.
I couldn't stand that part.
It wasn't that I couldn't stand it. I wasn't invested in it. I wasn't.
No, it was so distracting. I was like, why are you doing this? I guess it made sense for later on in the novel. I mean, but it's like, ugh.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that it was, and this is my theory, is that it was put in to set up some stuff in the next book, because the next book, they've got to be going through that darn stone door in the library.
Well, doesn't he talk about having like a cloak of invisibility, or the cloak of whatever the hell he is, like, I don't know,
the shade
or something? Yeah, you've read it more than I. I've only read both of them once, but I couldn't put them down.
It's a cloak of shadows. It's not invisibility. So it's like he can hide in the shadows and you can't see him or something like that, which, cool. I get that. But yeah, I'm really hoping that he was just setting stuff up in the third book. But his story structure is very meandering. It doesn't really follow your traditional 3-act structure or anything like that. And I think part of the problem was, in my opinion, I think this trilogy was, in his mind, one book, and it just got out of hand. Because he can't seem to really find where the endings are.
You can't seem to find the time they're right either. This is the problem with me. But you know what the thing is? Ultimately, when I find an author that I can't put down, that's a special thing. And I couldn't put him down. I picked him up and I could not put him down. It took me a long time. I had the book forever. And finally, when I sat down and read him, and when that happens, it's like, oh, thank God. And it takes such a long time for me to find a book like that. It
took me 3 attempts to actually get past the first chapter.
That's the same for me.
Because that weird book ending that he did, where it starts with, it's like there were 3 types of silences or something like that. It just didn't grab me, know. But then my coworker kept telling me, it's like, you got to read this. And so on the 3rd attempt, I just decided, I'm going to give it several chapters. And by the time they actually got to the story of him being a kid, I read the entire thing, every single night for, weeks, got through both books and just read them again.
I took the second book to Hawaii with me, and I didn't want to do anything but read it.
That was a mistake.
I enjoyed that trip, not just for that book, just for the fact that, it's Hawaii.
That's awesome.
So Terry Pratchett had nothing to do with Patrick Ruffalo in that book. Probably, I don't know. I guess he would be like, probably read some Patrick's from Terry Pratchett, and obviously Neil Gaiman had something to do with Terry Pratchett, which we will do podcasts on both of them. I have not read any Brandon Sanderson though, and people keep talking about it. He's a fantastic writer. So I'm gonna fix that.
I think he's an excellent writer. I wouldn't say he's fantastic in my opinion, but I think that there's a reason for that. He comes up with what I have read from him, which admittedly is limited, but people that I've talked to who really like his stuff have kind of agreed with this. He comes up with really cool concepts, and then he just busts out a book. He doesn't really spend much time second guessing himself. He just sits down and he cranks it out. This guy comes out with multiple books every single year. I think it's like 3 or 4 books a year, something crazy like that. I haven't really looked into it. That's what I've been told. But he talks in some of his interviews. He's actually got a podcast. If you haven't listened to it, I've listened to a couple of his episodes.
What's he talk about?
Writing. It's basically how to write and stuff like that, if I remember correctly. I haven't listened to it in like 2 years or something like that.
I put a picture up. I participate on a subreddit called Prompt of the Day that just basically images. You put an image up and somebody gets inspired and does a piece of short fiction, and somebody did not like the picture I put up and said, "Oh, this is this is a cliche," and Brandon Sanderson says this is the reason, and he posted a YouTube video supporting his argument. I was like, oh, whatever, dude. Let's write a story or go away.
Go back to Tumblr.
Go back to Tumblr. No, the guy is, a 6-year Reddit veteran, but you know how trolls are. They can always support whatever argument they are trying to make with YouTube videos, I guess.
Yep.
So Terry Pratchett, anyway, is very prolific, and he is unfortunately not with us anymore.
Yeah.
And that is very sad, but a lot of his words are, and that leaves us with 41 books, I think. left to read. Have you read them all or no?
No. I'll make it through about one a month just because I'm so busy. And this year I've only made it through like 2 or 3. But I really want to get back into them because I mean they helped me through the worst part of my life. But just the fact that he can't make any more until his daughter starts coming out with them. I don't think I want to finish. I don't want it to end. But yeah, it's I probably read maybe half if I was to highball it.
Is she gonna write? Terry Pratchett's daughter declares The Shepherd's Crown will be the last Discworld novel.
What? Oh,
and
man.
she declares that I do not intend on writing more Discworld novels or giving anyone else permission to do so. And this was actually June 12th, 2015. So a little over
I hadn't heard
3 months ago. She's
Bummer.
brought down the curtain on her father's legacy. And yeah, they did run a Steam. What the hell is it called? This podcast is taking place too late. I cannot remember what things are called anymore.
Right. Steamroller?
Steamroller. They ran a steamroller over all his unpublished works, which is so sad. Why would you do that? That sucks. Yeah. Just publish them.
They're still coming out with Crichton stuff whenever they find it.
Oh, Michael Crichton?
Yeah.
He was a little bit of a... He didn't care. He's probably still alive someplace on ice.
Oh, no, Michael Crichton died.
No, I'm saying like...
Oh, I see what you mean.
He's probably in a computer someplace.
Sitting next to Walt Disney.
No, he's probably had his intellect uploaded onto an iMac or something. Writing from some kind of cloud, right? That's another interesting guy. I mean, you don't think about him. He's like on the same level of like a Stephen King.
Oh yeah, his work is so intense. He'll make you feel like you know the science that you're reading about. It's crazy.
Yeah, he was a scientist though as well, like a medical doctor.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, I didn't know so. That. I think so. And man, that just brings up a whole other level of fiction writers from like the 70s and 80s. I don't know. So where does that leave us? Have we covered Terry Pratchett to some degree that leaves us in a comfortable state, or have we missed anything?
I'm happy with it. Just if you haven't tried it, give it a shot. And if you're afraid to pick up a book, watch the movie.
Send me those links.
Does a pretty good job. So.
Which The Color of Money, and then there's the Hog. I was going to say Hogwarts, Hogfather.
Yeah, The Color of Magic and Hogfather.
And there's another one too. There's a claymation movie that sounded interesting. Let me get back to.
Really? I'm gonna have to do some more research into this. Jeez.
I was just looking at. There's a beautiful piece of art here. All right, man. Where did my Wikipedia page go? All right, they closed Wikipedia.
Well, I'll give a shout out to not a shout out, but I will definitely promote the audiobooks. Stephen Briggs and what's the other guys? There's a couple of them. Stephen Briggs. I can't remember them. Anyways, the guys who do the narration on the audiobooks do an amazing job. If you don't have the time to read them, pick them up at your local library, give them a listen. The narrators just make the characters all the better. That's if I had to start again, that is how I would start. Because if you're afraid to start one of his books, that'll pull you in, no doubt.
Yeah, audiobooks are a great way to get involved in one of these. I bet, especially when you're dealing with he almost writes in a different type of language.
Yeah, and I actually learned something
religious text like that.
Mm-hmm. If you listen to a book, it's not cheating at all, as long as you're past 5th grade reading level. If you've got 5th grade reading level, whether you listen to a book or you read it, your brain processes it the exact same way.
Stephen King says, as long as you're either listening to a book or reading a book, you're doing yourself a favor.
Yes. Yep. You'll glean the same benefits.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree.
And in fact, it takes longer.
Tell me what's happening on Telltale TV.
On Tall Tale TV?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm still doing the 2 a week. Two short audiobooks a week. I'm actually doing a guest spot on Far-Fetched Fables right now.
Oh, what's that?
I didn't really know about them, and they contacted me. They are a podcast that is very similar to what I do, like insanely similar. They will actually bring in lots of narrators that have their own projects, whatever those projects may be, even if it's just they do audiobooks, and they will read short stories that are submitted. So at this point, they are now paying people to submit stories. They're still not paying the narrators, but they're hoping to do so soon. But they started out doing pretty much the same thing that I'm doing. So I'm not alone anymore. I found somebody else.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, I've got a guest spot coming up on there.
Oh, great. Oh, no, I was just saying how great. Congratulations.
Oh, okay.
Fantastic.
Sorry.
When is that coming up?
Well, I've got to have it submitted to them by Friday. When it's going to actually air, I'm not sure. I'll hit you up when it does, though.
Oh, perfect.
Other than that, I'm really hoping to open up a third day of the week starting sometime next month. But that's going to be set aside for a couple of longer projects that I've got in the work with a couple of authors. So, but yeah, so a couple cool things coming up.
Perfect, man. Sounds awesome. And real excited about the number of subscribers that you have in your channel too. That was a really neat thing to see.
Yeah, I just broke 400, so that's awesome.
Yeah, perfect. And thanks for being willing to come on today as well. And I hope to get you back on Mirage in the next few weeks or so, and we'll do another author.
Yeah, anytime. I love it. It's awesome.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Chris. Really appreciate it, man.
All right. Have a good night.
Talk to you soon. Bye.